Sarah noticed it on their third date. The same navy blue button-down shirt with tiny white pinstrings, slightly faded at the collar, carefully pressed but clearly old. At first, she thought it was just coincidence. Maybe he really liked that shirt. Maybe it was his favorite. But by the fifth date, when he showed up wearing it again, she couldn't help but wonder if something else was going on. Most people would have been turned off, would have assumed he didn't care enough to dress up, that he wasn't taking their time together seriously. But Sarah saw something different in his eyes, something that made her heart whisper that there was more to this story than a simple fashion choice. His name was Daniel, and he had walked into her life on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon at the coffee shop where she worked part-time while finishing her nursing degree. He had ordered a black coffee, no sugar, and when their eyes met across the counter, she felt something shift in the universe. He was handsome in an understated way, with kind brown eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled, and a gentleness in his voice that made her feel safe. When he asked if she'd like to have dinner with him sometime, she said yes without hesitation, surprising herself with her own boldness. The Seckers, if you believe in the power of kindness and second chances, and in stories that remind us what truly matters in life, please hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world, and it helps us share more stories that touch the soul. Their first date had been magical. Daniel took her to a small Italian restaurant tucked away on a quiet street, the kind of place where the owner knew everyone's names and the pasta was made fresh every morning. He was attentive and thoughtful, asking questions about her dreams, her family, her hopes for the future. He listened, really listened, in a way that made her feel like she was the only person in the world. And he wore that navy blue shirt. On their second date, they walked through the botanical gardens, his hand eventually finding hers as they strolled beneath cherry blossom trees. The same shirt. Third date, a movie and ice cream after. Fourth date, a picnic by the lake. Fifth date, dancing at a friend's wedding where she was a guest and he was her +1. Every single time, that same navy blue shirt. Sarah tried not to let it bother her. After all, Daniel was everything she had hoped to find in a partner. He was respectful, funny, intelligent, and more romantic than any man she had ever known. He remembered the small things she mentioned in passing, how she loved sunflowers, how she took her tea with honey and lemon, how her favorite movie was an obscure foreign film most people had never heard of. He made her feel cherished. But the shirt nagged at her like an unanswered question, a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. One evening, after their seventh date, yes, the same shirt again, Sarah decided she needed to understand. They were sitting on her apartment steps, the late summer air warm and comfortable around them, fireflies dancing in the darkness. She turned to him, trying to find the right words, not wanting to hurt him but needing to know the truth. She asked him gently why he always wore the same shirt when they went out together. For a moment, Daniel's expression shifted, and she saw something flicker across his face. Pain, vulnerability, a deep sadness that made her immediately regret asking. But then he took her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm, and he began to tell her a story that would change everything she thought she knew about him. Daniel had been married once, he told her, his voice barely above a whisper. Her name was Emma, and she had been the love of his life since they were teenagers. They had married young, full of dreams and plans for their future together. Emma had loved that navy blue shirt. She had bought it for him on their second anniversary, carefully picking it out because she said it matched his eyes and made him look handsome. He had worn it on every special occasion after that. Their anniversary dinners, her birthday celebrations, the night he got promoted at work, the evening they found out they were going to have a baby. But life, Daniel explained with tears now streaming down his face, doesn't always give us the happy endings we plan for. Emma had been diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer when she was 5 months pregnant. The doctors told them they needed to start treatment immediately, but Emma refused. She wouldn't risk their baby's life, not even to save her own. She carried their daughter to term, growing weaker with each passing week, her body fighting a battle it couldn't win. She gave birth to a beautiful baby girl they named Lily. And for 3 precious weeks, Emma held their daughter, loved her, sang to her, and made Daniel promise that he would always remember how much joy was possible in life, even in the darkest moments. Emma passed away on a quiet October morning, with Daniel holding her hand and Lily sleeping in a bassinet beside the bed. In her final hours, she had touched that navy blue shirt he was wearing and told him that whenever he wore it, she would be with him, watching over him and their daughter. She made him promise something else too, that he wouldn't shut himself off from love, that when the time was right, he would open his heart again, because that's what life was for, to love and be loved, to find beauty even after devastating loss. For 3 years, Daniel explained he had kept that promise to himself but not to her. He had raised Lily, who was now 3 years old and living mostly with his parents during his work hours, and he had focused entirely on being a father. He hadn't dated, hadn't even considered the possibility of loving someone new. But then he saw Sarah at that coffee shop, and something in him stirred back to life. The shirt became his armor and his tributa, a way to keep Emma close while taking the terrifying step of opening his heart to someone new. Every date with Sarah, he wore it because he needed Emma's blessing, needed to feel like she was there with him, telling him it was okay to love again. Sarah sat in stunned silence, tears flowing freely down her cheeks, her heart simultaneously breaking and healing. She understood now that the shirt wasn't about carelessness or lack of effort. It was about the deepest kind of love, the kind that transcends death, the kind that gives permission for life to continue even when everything feels like it's ending. She realized that every time Daniel showed up wearing that shirt, he was doing the bravest thing imaginable. He was choosing to honor his past while embracing the possibility of a future. She told him that she understood, that she felt privileged to know the truth, and that Emma must have been an extraordinary woman to have loved him so completely and to have been so selfless in her final wishes. Daniel nodded, squeezing her hand tighter, and then he said something that made Sarah's decision crystal clear. He told her about Lily, about how she was the light of his life, about how he wanted Sarah to meet her if she was willing to take on not just him but the whole package. A man with a deceased wife he would always love, a young daughter who needed stability and affection, and a navy blue shirt that held more memories than any piece of clothing should bear. If this story has touched your heart, if you believe in love that endures beyond all obstacles, please show your support by liking this video, sharing it with someone who needs to hear it, and leaving a comment below about what this story means to you. Your engagement truly matters. Sarah said yes that night to all of it. She met Lily the following week, a beautiful little girl with her mother's smile and her father's kind eyes. The child took to Sarah immediately, and Sarah found herself falling in love, not just with Daniel but with the family they could build together. A family that honored the past, while creating something new and beautiful. Daniel continued to wear that navy blue shirt on special occasions, but now Sarah understood it as the gift it was. A reminder that love doesn't diminish when it's shared, it multiplies. Thus, before we reach the end of this story, I want to ask you something special. If Daniel and Sarah's story moved you, if it reminded you of what truly matters in life, please take a moment to comment below with a single word that describes how this story made you feel. Let's create a wave of emotion together in the comments. 6 months later, Daniel and Sarah stood together at the edge of the same lake where they had once had a picnic, Lily playing nearby with flower petals. Daniel wore a new shirt this time, a gift from Sarah, but the navy blue one hung carefully in his closet, preserved and honored. He had told Sarah that he felt Emma's presence that day, felt her approval in the warmth of the sun, and the joy in Lily's laughter. Sarah understood that she wasn't replacing Emma, she was adding to the story, becoming part of a narrative about resilience, hope, and the extraordinary capacity of the human heart to love again after loss. The reason Daniel wore the same shirt to every date wasn't about fashion or forgetfulness. It was about carrying the weight of love so profound that it couldn't be contained by death, about honoring a promise to someone who gave everything for her family, and about having the courage to believe that our hearts are big enough to hold both grief and joy, both yesterday and tomorrow. His story broke hearts open, but only so they could be filled with something greater. The understanding that true love never really ends. It just transforms, making room for new chapters while treasuring every word of the ones that came before.